Advanced Mushroom Wine, Part 2. I'm Phil. This is Filled with Facts, and on today's video, we're going to be tasting and racking our Advanced Mushroom Wine. So, a couple of weeks ago, or back on November 28th, we started an Advanced Mushroom Wine. So, fermentation has really it kicked off fast and it went incredibly quick. Right now I'm seeing very little signs that fermentation is still happening. There's still a few bubbles, but I'm pretty sure it's just some off-gassing from when I moved the carboy to the table. So today, I want to rack it and get a sample and see where we're at. We have to remove the lid. Take your hydrometer, your graduated cylinder, and your baster, or however you prefer to get liquid from one vessel to the next. Now, there's a lot of stuff in here. There's all kinds of mushrooms. This was a very mushroom-forward recipe. So you have to break that cap to get to the actual liquid. But you don't want to go so low that you start picking up the lees. So just be careful while doing. And we're now sitting at a 1.000. Yeah, this is done. So, next thing we're going to do, I should start with, this started at a 1.115 and ended at a 1.000. So this is roughly 15% ABV, which is a very respectable wine. I'm not expecting this to taste good. I just want to see where it's at. It's an incredible smell. It has a lot of floral notes, very citrusy. Yeah, it's incredible. If you handed somebody this glass and said, this is a wine I made with mushrooms, I wouldn't believe it. Yeah, it's still very young. And so it tastes very young. But it has a lot to it. And it's already very complex. With a little bit of age, this is going to be fantastic. So next thing we're going to do is pour gently into a new carboy, sanitized carboy. Anything that touches your brew when you are creating a wine, a mead, whatever it may be, should be sanitized with a food grade safe sanitizer. I like Star San, but there's a dozen of them on the market. All right. Next thing we're going to need to do is our racking setup. All right, so I have my auto siphon here. Now, there's a dozen ways to get the liquid from here to here. What you don't want to do is just pour it out or strain it. You want to use some kind of siphon or some technique where you're not introducing a whole bunch of air into your brew. That's how you oxidize your brew. It doesn't necessarily ruin it, but you're creating a different product than what you were intending to. So this is just a really easy way to avoid that. You're going to put the tube all the way to the bottom. You can put this end into the liquid about halfway down. Give it a couple of quick pumps. And once it starts going, you're good. So if you tip it, you'll get a little bit more liquid, but there's so much in this fermenter that you're going to have some loss. It's just what's going to happen. There's no way around it. And you kind of just have to ask yourself when you're greedy enough. Because any sediment or sludge draining you get into your next vessel, it's just going to get racked off on the next rack after that. So you're not really getting too much more from it. And I think we're about there. So, now the next question you might have is, what do I do with everything down here? So, you have options. There's a few things you can do. One, it's great for compost. Compost is definitely one option, especially if you have a nice garden outside. Another thing you can do is pour more water and sugar on top of this and you have a healthy yeast colony right here. It should pick up and create another wine. The more you do that, the less flavor you'll get each time. So it's not like, oh, let me just add some water and sugar and create another mushroom wine with this. Those mushrooms gave up a lot of their essence into this wine. So it's not going to be the same. However, if this wasn't mushrooms, or even with the mushrooms, you could add other stuff to it, and it will make another wine. That's up to you. It could just be thrown out. And if you thought about eating it, you can. They will taste horrible. Nothing I've ever fermented with at the bottom has been tasty to me afterwards. But they do have about 15% alcohol in them. So that's really on you and what you want to do with it. I want to put another airlock on. It is amazing when the bung fits. Okay. If your bung doesn't fit, there's a very easy solution to that. Simply just go and get a different bung. There we go. And it's already showing pressure again. So this is going to still be degassing for a while. It still has a little bit of time before it's going to be clear and drinkable and all the stuff like that. But we are on a very good start. It is at this point, when you first rack, you have to ask yourself a few questions. Is the sweetness level where I want it? Now, you might need to back sweeten if it's not. But you don't want to back sweeten right this second, because you'll just kick up another fermentation. But at least you'll be mindful of the sweetness level. You also want to see the acidic level. Now, this has wonderful citrus notes. I'm just taking small sips, letting it acclimate to my palate. And the more I swirl it in the glass, the more I let it sit here, the more of those very young gases start to dissipate. So I can get a nice flavor of what this is, or an idea of what the flavors are, I should say. And the body is wonderful. It coats your mouth. It sits there. You get the nice orange flavors. It does not taste like a mushroom wine. No, scratch that. It does not taste like mushrooms. It absolutely tastes like any other mushroom wine I've ever made, which is why I love mushroom wines. Because you get such a depth of flavor you don't expect from this. And it is really just good. Other things you could do at this stage is adjust tannins. So I could add more wine tannin if I wanted to give it a better body, but it doesn't need it. If you wanted more citrus, this is where you could add more citrus. Lemon peel, orange peels, some kind of fruit juice. You don't have to worry about killing fermentation anymore because fermentation already happened. Oaking. Now this might be wonderful oaked, but I haven't committed to oaking it yet. I don't know that it necessarily will need it. So what I'm going to do is put it back on its shelf and let it just sit for another few weeks. Let it start to naturally clear out. And then taste it again and see if I want to do something like oak it, or if it's just good enough as is, bottle it and age it. Another thing we want to do that I constantly forget to mention is we have notes. I just use these blue painter tape. It works wonderful. And I like to add onto it today's date, the ABV we got, not the ABV, the gravity we got today. And if I was going to add anything, I might mark it on here. I personally have a logbook where I write the recipes down, and I'll write in that logbook any additions I added afterwards, because I want to make sure that if I make a recipe and it comes out like the best thing I've ever drank, I have a way to duplicate it, do it again. Or if something was almost perfect, or maybe even not that good at all, at least I have notes on what I did, like a real recipe, which I put in every video so you guys know what the recipes are. But I used to mess around with all kinds of labels for my stuff, and I'm sure a lot of homebrewers do too. You can go to CVS and pick up, or any drugstore, and pick up literal labels that you can put on stuff. What happens is it becomes a pain in the butt to clean those off of your bottles. And you end up having fermenters that have all kinds of different glue and a label that's an old label and 100 different things. Where with this, it comes right off, but it's sticky enough to stay on, and I can remove it constant times and put it onto the next fermenter. And at least I have a nice record of everything I did and when I did it. So I know how long it's been since I've touched a brew, which sometimes is a very important piece of information to have. I'm telling you, if it's 1 or 2 brews, you might be able to remember a lot of this information, like dates, certain ingredients, things of that nature. But after you have 3 or 4 things going at once, all of a sudden it starts to mix up a little bit in your head. And you're like, did I start that one first? Did I rack that one yet? And you just want to make sure you know. So labels are important, but as I said, I always forget to mention it. But I hope you guys are labeling, and I recommend painter's tape. Just super easy. You don't have to worry about cleaning it up afterwards, and when you're done, you're done. It just comes right off. All right, sorry about that little rant, but I digress. So if you guys enjoyed this video, this recipe, or anything that's been on my content, please go ahead, like the video. Subscribe and you can see more videos like it. I have a bunch. If you have a question, a comment, or a concern, please leave it in the comments below. I'll be happy to answer anything you guys leave me. And with that said, thank you so much for watching. I am Phil. This is Phil with Facts. And until next time, guys, cheers.